Had to do a little bit of Tetris here to have enough space where I can park the cookie over here for now, and then I can get the 300 so I can start working on the timing stuff. Just for temporary. Like I said, once that's done, I'll move everything back, because I do like to have my gym here. So I had to play a little bit of car roulette here to get everything out. And poor Subi. Subi is running on 3 cylinders right now, but we'll figure that out too as soon as everything else is done. Never-ending projects, am I right? Yeah, that's good. Alright, so RSX is going to be out there for a little bit. Got the Subaru backed into a new spot since this car is not running yet. Alright, let's get this car up. And then we can see everything here. So, on your 300X, this is a NA non-turbo. So we will be, usually you'll have a fan shroud. Whoever owned this prior, looks like they wired in some E-fans with the shroud, which is nice because normally you won't see any of this on here. It'll just be a clutch fan with the cowl, and that's pretty much it. So it looks like they've eliminated that. The only problem is I see that they tapped one of these metal hoses for a temperature sensor, but the weird thing is when I traced it, the temperature sensor goes to nothing, and this looks like the relay that controls these fans. So I'm gonna have to clean that up, make that look a lot better, and actually make sure it works. But since they removed this cowling, it makes it a little bit easier to access. Goodness, they really just kind of, I'm gonna make sure to clean all this wiring up. Now, unfortunately, I do have to remove all of the intake as well, just because to get to those valve covers, that is a must. So I will be deleting the coolant lines to that as well, but we'll have to split that up into another video. But for now, I'm going to, I always like to unplug the battery just to be safe, and then I can start tackling the radiator to give us the room, and then we'll start removing everything from the front of the motor. So, all right, so I did want to show underneath, so you can see what we're looking at here. But if you look underneath the crank pulley, bunch of oil coming out from there, and which is kind of completely caking the cross member. So I'm going to make sure we clean all that the best we can, and even kind of on the side over there by the starter. So, but first I'm gonna get a bucket under here so we can drain the fluids. And oh yeah, that's right, it's automatic. So we have automatic lines for the oil cooler. So we're gonna have to make sure we plug those up nice and good too, so they don't completely leak on us. The drain on this one is on the driver's side part of the radiator, and there's a little lever here. If I can see it. Oh, make sure you have a bucket there. There we go. Alright, I'm gonna unplug the cap from the top. Make sure, obviously, you do this when it's not cold or when it's not hot. There we go. I'll let that drain, and then I'll start unplugging stuff. While that's going, I'm gonna work on the top to remove these hoses, and then we can remove those hoses at the bottom. So I'm gonna start with these brackets. This looks like it was replaced already too, so I'm definitely gonna use a clamp that's appropriate for this size, because that's definitely a lot bigger. Alright. I have to replace this one too. This looks like there we go. Alright, usually when I do this, I set it up so it's accessible for me to remove it or have somebody else be able to remove it, but again, everybody has their own thing. This bolt is like positioned in the weirdest way, but it's okay, I got it. Now we should be able to, oh, careful with the igniter. Let's see, I normally would have had that sticking out like that so you could actually reach it, but that's just me. Alright, so down below you'll see two hoses. That is for the transmission fluid cooler. It runs through the radiator, and that you'll obviously only have that in automatic. So if you do have a 5-speed, you won't have to do this part, but just two clamps at the bottom of here. I'll remove those and put a bucket underneath because it will be leaking trans fluid. I believe they replaced the radiator already, because this doesn't look like a factory radiator, and that's why these hoses were so easy to remove. So, but yeah, I'll go ahead and do that, and we should be good. There we go. Alright, so both of them are just letting them drain a little bit, so that way when I pull out the radiator, I don't get transmission fluid everywhere. There we go. Just gotta be careful with the fins. And then there we go. It's off. A little dirty on this side. I'm gonna clean that up over here. Now we got a lot more space, and I can clean up the radiator a little bit, because yeah, this is definitely a replacement radiator with aftermarket fans. So now, while everything is still on, I like to cover these up and then kind of do a thorough rinse before I pull the covers off, just so that way it's a little less dirty from all the oil being splattered from the front main and all that. So I'm just gonna get wet. I do have some degreaser that I'm gonna spray onto here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna loosen up the power steering pulley here. We'll do this bolt right here, and I might have to turn the motor a little bit, because behind this pulley there's a bolt. So they make these recesses here so that you can access that bolt. So it should be that, and then this, and that should loosen this up. Alright, so just so you guys can see, on the alternator there's a 17 I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it on here with the light, but right there. There's a 17 right there. And then you'll use a, what is this, a 12 to loosen up the tension right here below it. 12 on the power steering. Again, we're gonna have to figure out how to get behind this. I might have to just crank that over. And a 14 on the idler here to remove the AC. So I'm gonna do that really quick, and then we should be able to get all these belts off. All right, so going back to the power steering, behind here you actually can get a 14, and this will loosen up the hinge bolt, and then the 12 down here, and then your adjustment is a 12, I believe. All right, so once you loosen that up, you can I just go off to the side here. I'm just pushing it from the pretty much from the banjo bolt down there, and it'll give you enough leverage to take the actual belt off. All right, so figured the power steering already, and again we already figured out the AC. This I was able to loosen up the tensioner bolt right here, as well as loosen up the actual pivot bolt at the top, and it still wasn't giving enough to take it off. If you see, I tried to remove the water pump bolts, still wasn't able, because it's pretty tight on there. So I went under, and this kind of sucks because it's wet, but behind, if you look at the alternator, behind the actual tensioner, there's a bolt back there. I believe it's a 12. Let me see. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see this, but right here, yep, it's a 12. Let's see if I can get it right there. So I'm gonna loosen that up, and that should give way to, yep, it already moved. All right, let's go back to the top. So right here, there we go. That should be enough. There, now that can come off. All right, so all three belts are off. I went ahead and removed this water pulley because that's going to be completely replaced with a brand new one. All right, now that we got all those off, I'm going to, let's move this so it doesn't get completely soaked. We can reuse that. Now we're going to go ahead and get the wiring out of the way. I can probably take these off now. And I'm going to definitely clean these up. Those are, oh gosh, looks like they might have already ran just normal water. This is what happens when you run just normal hose water, because there are a lot of minerals in them and they will rust out. Which, when I took the actual coolant out, it looked fine in the actual, no, you can kind of see it's a little rusted in there too, so I might have to run some flush, so that way we can get rid of some of this nasty gunk inside, because if it's in here, guess what, it's probably going to be inside the motor. I'm guessing they had some overheating issues, because with the radiator itself being completely replaced and seeing that there's a rust in there, they must have just thrown normal water to replace, you know, when it overheats. Gosh, I hope not, because then that means the motor might have gotten too hot, and that's not always a good thing for the heads because they can warp, so I'm hoping it didn't get super hot. Okay, so now all the belts are off. I'm gonna remove the intake pipes off. Okay, that one's not so bad. On the back side of these, you gotta be careful because there's two hoses. One right there, and a small line right there. Down in there. So we'll remove that, and then I should be able to slip that side off, and then we'll do the same over here on this side. All right, so on the driver's side, you'll have these two intake hoses. It looks like vacuum ports, vacuum lines, and then There's a small one. I actually labeled it intake just because sometimes you kind of, after a while, get mixed up on what goes where. So this is what it looks like on the, there we go. So it's in the back port right here. This camera is awesome. I love that it just doesn't know how to focus on anything. Anyways, but yeah, so there's 3 ports on here. 2 for the larger ones, and that one that I went ahead and labeled. Okay, so now that's done, I can actually get this wiring out of the way. So we'll do that. Okay, but just like that, you should be able to remove this whole piece. And again, just be careful because this wiring is fairly old. I'm gonna go ahead and, just so I can get this completely off, I'm gonna remove the CAS sensor plug. All right, so if you notice, everything is clear and out of the way of the complete front cover. Wiring's all gone off to the side right here, and definitely want to clean this area up because it's really nasty. So the next step here is these coolant pipes. Now it is, I'm gonna have to show you here, some hex heads that you need to remove on both sides of the top pipe. Now the only thing is, mine, it's a 6 from my understanding, because my 7 was too big. My next one up is 6, and unfortunately, if you notice, mine's broken. So I've been meaning to get this replaced. I used it as an impact, and which was really stupid because, yeah, they're not made for that, and completely tore apart. So it's definitely a 6 hex key. What I went ahead and did, I just found a key, actual hex key, and I was able to, it wasn't on super tight, so I was able to just break it loose with this, and then you should be able to remove it by hand afterwards. So alright, so I was able to remove those 2 bolts, and if you look, it's moving around now. I was able to remove the hose clamp on this side. This side's just insane to even get anything in there. So I'm not reusing these. So the easiest way to get this hose off, especially since it's probably never been taken off since factory when it first came out, is just take a little box cutter here, and you should be able to, I'm going to try to get as far back there as I can, and you should be able to just pry this off. You should be able to, just like that, make it a lot easier to remove this. Now as far as the other side, I'm gonna have to see what I can do, but hopefully by moving this, it gives me some space. So what I did is took the long nose and kind of scooted it back. I don't know if you guys can see that. I scooted it back as far as you can. It's kind of in the darkness right now, but scooted it back, and I'm going to try the same thing on this side with cutting it. Okay, so the reason why that wasn't moving, I noticed at the bottom there was still one more bolt, so there's a total of 3 on here, so I should be, there we go, there we go. Ooh, that's nasty. Yep, so there was, if you notice, there's 1 at the bottom, 2 at the top, and that is for the top intake, our top coolant hose. Now you have full access to, there's 2 12s on down here where the thermostat sits, and then you'll have 1 more of that size 6 hex right here. I might have to use these again. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and take that off, and we should be able to start removing the covers. Don't mind my glove. should be right there. There's that thermostat. We're ready for the covers. Alright, so to remove these covers, hex heads, size 5mm. Belt still looks fine. It looks like it was done, but everything is leaking here, so that's pretty crazy. So the belt doesn't look like it's factory. It looks like they did replace it. It is a Mitsubishi belt, but like I said, I'm all about the OEM stuff, and I wanted to make sure. It looks like that water pump is also OEM, so they might have done the timing belt but didn't change that out, which doesn't make any sense. So, alright, I'm gonna get these covers off and then keep on going. Got the covers off, got the CAS off, just took the whole mounting bracket off with it because I know I will have to separate them to put it back in, but I'm gonna mark that before putting it back just so that way timing is close. But yeah, definitely a new belt, so they had to have done this, but I just don't understand why they would replace all that and then not replace the water pump. Yeah, I mean they could have, but this is all leaking here. They used a paper gasket for the thermostat, which OEM calls for the silicone. I'm going to reseal that. You can definitely see there's oil coming down from the top here, which is going to be from the valve covers. I will be replacing the springs in the VTCs, as well as there's a ring, an O-ring in here that I'm going to replace. All the parts I took off will also get a nice cleaning, as well as maybe even a coat of paint on those tubes, because you do see that. Same thing on the CAS. So Alright, so I don't recommend doing that, but basically you want to look at your crank and see which way it turns when you crank it. I couldn't get my impact in here because the condenser, I didn't want to take that off. But that's a trick that's a little sketch, where you kind of place your breaker bar in a position that when you crank it, it breaks that bolt loose. So it's ready to go. I didn't have a CAS in, so it wouldn't start, which is good. But now that bolt should be, let's see, that bolt should be loose now since it was able to freely turn. Yep. So I'm just gonna leave that there for now. But if you wanna, if you're kind of out of options and you can't get this bolt loose and you don't have a tool to hold the crank pulley, that'll work for sure. But anyways, now I can continue. I'm gonna remove this. I'm actually gonna get this to the top dead center and then remove the pulley. So the top, when you're top dead center, you'll see it should be at 0 on the marking. All of these should line up perfectly. It looks like it's close. Actually, it looks like, I think actually that should be okay. A couple degrees shouldn't, it's an interference motor, but a couple degrees shouldn't make it so that it'll hit. So I think I'll leave it there, and I'm gonna pull the pulley off. It shouldn't be too hard here. Yep, she's already coming out. Alright, there we go. There we go. Now we can remove this cover and expose, oh shoot, So there is a keyway. Shoot, did it fall? You'll see a key here. I'm gonna go check on that. It shouldn't be on that crank, but it might have fallen out. It definitely fell, so make sure to keep an eye on that. I just got my magnet tool. Looks like this, little half moon. And that's what keeps it the crank in place. So don't lose this. I usually will tape it to the crank pulley itself. Alright, so now that we found that, this is one of the sprocket washer. I think I'm gonna remove this tomorrow once I remove the cover itself. But now that that's done, we got the cover to remove, and I'm gonna clean up all this gunk. It is late, so I'm gonna pick this up tomorrow after work, and we can actually start cleaning all the, because I'm gonna have to end up removing this whole valve cover, or this whole intake manifold too. Alright, so it's day 2. Got the crank bolt out. It was getting late, got dark, so today's gonna be the last day that it's actually be dry out. The next 6 days is gonna be raining, so I'm gonna prioritize today to just get some of the painting done, just because I don't like to do that when it's raining. The paint gets weird, the humidity's weird, all that stuff doesn't end up in a good quality paint job. So I'm going to paint the front covers. I already cleaned up the top cover, so I'm gonna paint that as well. I'm thinking of just going with this like high temp cast iron, and then maybe putting a clear coat over it. Or I was thinking about doing a purple that I have left, but it's kind of like, it's like a candy purple. I don't know, it's a lot of work, and honestly just want it just to be clean. It's not like a show car or anything like that. It's gonna be a car that I'll be driving more often than not. So the manifold, I might just go with like a silver aluminum, just like that. I don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe I'll do the purple on the, I don't know. But I gotta clean these up, and I might even, I don't know. I'm gonna paint. I think I'm just gonna clean these up for now and paint those 3 parts. Alright, so I got a couple coats, about 3 coats, turning out pretty nice. There was contamination on the main covers, the front covers, but to be honest, I'm not upset. It actually gives it almost like that raw cast look on just the center parts, which I might throw some clear right out over that just so it looks a little better, but I'm not upset. No matter what I did, and I feel like it looks okay over here on this side, but again, that's what happens when you just don't prep. But again, like I said, I'm not upset because it kind of gives it like a texture. All right, I think these are done. I did a few super light coats and let it dry. And then a couple super light coats again, and then let it dry, and that kind of like textured staining, it went away for the most part. I mean, you can still kind of see the texture, but it's not discolored like how it was. So, looks a lot better. Alright, so while those parts are drying, I am just taking some degreaser, letting it soak and agitating it with a little bristle brush. This is just a nylon brush, so it's not like super abrasive or anything, but I'm just letting it sit in here. I know that probably wondering why I have the cover still on, but before I take stuff apart like these, it's just nice to get it all clean first. It's just easier to clean in my opinion because it's all stationary and it's all held onto something compared to holding it with one hand or putting it down and cleaning it. But so to each their own. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that cover now. Now with that there, I'm gonna finagle this out. But there she is. Okay, so when you're removing this, you'll have a bolt right here on the left. So you got two on the left side. This is the one that was behind that alternator bracket. One down here on the opposite side. So 4 total on the bottom, and the 5th one up here. So I'm gonna collect all my bolts and we'll clean this up. Probably give that a nice coat of paint as well. Oh man, she's dirty behind there. Anyways, I got more axes here now. We'll go ahead and start removing this stuff.